Hello and welcome everyone to another official recording for the channel for one of the rookie coaching clinics in the SimRacing604 community. For today's video we have a track walkthrough for the upcoming rookie race at Brands Hatch, a tradition we are hoping to keep continuing alongside the rookie season to help let people get to know all the new tracks and to keep a dialogue open between the coaches and the rookies. During the session, the rookies and the other coaches will be free to ask questions or point out problems that they've been having at any time as we go. This will be followed by an uninterrupted full speed lap for folks to be able to see all the things that we talked about all string together. Just for some context again, the Rookie Series provides all newcomers to the community or sim racing with a fantastic introductory league to start learning and to improve. There is very little pressure and mistakes are actually fantastic. They're not frowned upon. They're seen as an opportunity for everybody to learn. There's really a fantastic atmosphere among the rookies. At the moment, the car of choice is the Lamborghini Super Trofeo as a single make, single car league. This car was chosen because it's a great platform for folks to build from and to progress into leagues with any other car. Something I will add here just before we get going is a quick word about markers. These are references around the track that help orient us to what we need to be doing immediately before, at, or past them. Typically these need to be fixed objects around the track that will not move or get destroyed. Establishing clear markers and then being able to be consistent are your biggest aids in improving. Hope you guys will find the video helpful. All the best. Cheers. So as you're coming through here, you're going to be probably like mid-track, okay? And going into the first corner, I found the best entry for me is if I start out wide and point the nose of my car towards the apex, okay? There's another way that you can take this corner where you kind of stay more in the middle of the track and brake a little bit earlier to slow you down. It's a little bit safer, but if you can get consistent where you can come out here and as you see the kink in the pit line, start braking towards the apex. So I'm out here and I'll start braking towards the apex of the corner and I'll just be kind of holding the turn, go down into third, hold the turn. Do not touch this curb in this car because it will want to over rotate you and send you into a spin through this dip, okay? As you come down here, you're still not quite on the power yet. You should be able to get somewhere here, you should be able to get back on the power, okay? The understeer.
Hey,
yeah.
Sorry, one thing I was going to mention. Back on the entry of Paddock Hill Bend, you see along the track side here, there are those orange markers where the track opens up. So those are normally gaps in the tire barrier where like marshals can easily slip in and out to like recover cars or drivers can find ways to get in and out. Those are really great permanent markers to use as a reference.
Yep.
Right, because like the where I normally brake going into Paddock Hill is around at the 2, right? And Marcus can't back up because it would disqualify him, right? But I normally brake around the 2 marker there. There's a brake sign there. There's a 2 sign there. Those are both terrible markers to use because someone can run those over. But that orange square will never move. And so I'll use that. I'll use the little teleprompter sign that's also at the end, straight ahead of me down there, to kind of line those 2 up. And then I kind of know this is around the place where I need to get on the brakes and around the place where I need to get off.
Yeah, when we come back around at the end of the lap, we can go take a closer look over there.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, so over here on the exit, you're going to be out wide, pretty close to on this curb. You can use this curb, it'll be safe, and you can be on the power on here, okay? Just not in the rain. In the rain, you want to be very careful, but we don't have to worry about that. Down here, just full tilt. Good markers are the bridge, this orange at the end of the barrier on the left-hand side over here. The orange on the right-hand side is too, but you can see that they're not in line with each other, so you just have to remember, depending on if you're on the inside or the outside, going into this corner, if you're braking before, after, or at one of these points, okay? It's going to be a little bit different for everybody depending on the ABS that you're using and that kind of stuff, but 3 good markers, the orange things on both sides, and the bridge. This little 1 stripe, diagonal stripe, is a good marker as well, but the problem is people can take it out, so you don't want to be using that. I'll usually brake like right underneath the bridge here. Okay. This corner is interesting. You're going to brake all the way into this corner, and you can kind of go a little bit deeper on the entry, because as you turn and get back on the power, you'll notice that the car will kind of rotate itself into the corner exit. Okay, so it'll kind of want to rotate itself to over here somewhere.
Well, and also too, if you look at Druids is downhill when you get at the apex. So one thing you always want to take a look at when you're doing a slow track walk is track elevation change, because the way that the track is inclined or declined will affect how it affects the car.
The camber of the corners, exactly.
Right, the camber of the corners, exactly. And so the amount of compression that happens on the car and the amount of load, or where the weight is shifting around the car, is directly correlated to the direction of the track, because the paved surface goes in that particular direction. And so, for example, going through Druids, it's easier to slow down and let kind of gravity rotate the car, because it's being pulled that direction naturally. So you don't have to stuff it in there, right? A lot of people spin because they stuff it in and they treat the track like it's a flat surface with no elevation. And so they're going down a hill when they think they're going flat, and gravity's just like, well, okay, and spins you around.
Exactly. So something I will say, just up to where we are right now in the track, so that downhill corner, first corner, and the hairpin that we just went through are going to be two big kind of coming together points at the beginning of lap 1. Okay, so the whole thing is going to concertina, the whole field is going to concertina, so just be mindful of that. You're going to have to be braking way early going into both the first turn and the hairpin, and just kind of cruising through there, making sure you don't hit anybody or spin or anything like that. Okay, also because your tires are going to be a little bit cold, you're going to have less traction in general, so just be careful on slamming on the throttle when you're coming out of turn 1 on the first couple laps. Okay.
Normally that first sector is where we see like obliterations.
Right.
And so like the last league race we had here, we had, you know, taps in the paddock, people slamming into each other into Druids, and then people spinning in Graham Hill because they kept trying to make up time. And we're racing now, so the concept of making up time doesn't matter anymore. So, you know, just be a little more mindful of the cars around you. This is probably one of those places where, like, if you're going to let a car coast by you, might as well, especially on lap 1, because they're likely going to be in the grass or they have no idea where their car is. And so it's okay.
Yep.
It'll be fine.
Exactly. So this little kink over here is a tough one for most folks to get right, rain or shine. Some good markers, this orange barrier and the start of the curb. Okay, so this orange barrier right here next to the diagonal whiteboard, and the start of the curb, both good markers. So I would say brake before this curve and get out as wide as you can over here, okay, because it's going to open up this little kink to make it easier. If you are more on the inside or like midway on the track and you try and make this kink, odds are you're going to go over that inside rumble strip over there, and it's going to want to over rotate the car and send you into a spin. The more you can open up this corner, the less chance you have of having like a sharp steering angle on your car and sending yourself into a spin. Okay, so brake all the way down. This is a second gear corner, I would say. Okay, if you go out and go down into first, it's going to just way over rev the car, and you want to get really close to this rumble strip. The ST is kind of dicey. Okay, depending on your setup, it can be relatively safe to run over the inside, but I would err on the side of caution with that. Okay, somewhere around here you'll be able to get back on the power in second, and you'll see the understeer in this car will kind of send you out here. You can ride this up to about here. If you go any more than this, your rear tire on the right hand side is going to touch the grass, and it's very easy to spin. Okay, very easy to spin. Then you're just going to get on the power down into the next turn. We always want to make the track as short as possible, so here just be mindful if there's a car next to you, then you can't kind of cut across the track like this, okay? But for an ideal lap, you can do that.
Oh, Marcus, one thing. Going through Graham Hill and heading up into Surtees, one thing that I try to do to make it easier for me to remember what gear to be in is I want to make it so that when I enter Graham Hill, I don't need to shift up until I'm out of Graham Hill. So going in second gives me enough gearing that I can get the car slowed down, get the car on the right line, and accelerate out of the corner without having to do anything else. First is too short, so I'll have to do a shift mid corner.
Like right away, exactly.
Right away, it'll just the car will be like no, and then you have to shift up, so the car's unsettled as it's doing all that work,
and the ST hates gear shifts mid corner. So
my god,
it just hates it. It'll send the car into a spin.
Yeah, exactly. So the less you can, the more you can drive it like a single-speed go-kart, the faster you will be. Right. So if you can avoid mid-shifting mid-corner, if you can avoid bashing off the rev limiter, the car is way happier with you. And so, going through this one and Surtees and a few other corners, if you don't know where to start, think about what your revs are like as you're entering a corner, and if they're peaking, you're probably a gear too low. And so then you can try a gear higher and then just carry that RPM out of the corner. It's safer, it's easier, the car doesn't hate you. It's Italian, she'll get temperamental. So just be nice to her and give her a little bit more gear.
Exactly. Alrighty, so down into this next corner, you want to be out wide here. And good markers, again the diagonal guy, but people can take that out if they spin down here. So the orange marker, okay, and then the red truck or that tent, or these flapping GT signs are a good one. So the third last one I'll use as a marker, the orange. Sorry, say that again.
Background sound, I think.
Oh, gotcha. So the black GT flag thing, the orange right here in front of me, and then this diagonal board are three things you can use. I will usually brake somewhere between the orange and the flapping GT that you can still see visible there. And this is interesting. So this is kind of like a 2 apex corner to me. That's how I approach it. There's a couple of different ways to approach it, but I'll describe it as a 2 apex corner. So your braking is going to be directed to what I would say is the first apex, which is just here in front of us on the inside curve. Okay? Then you'll kind of go out wide and hold the turning angle in second gear. So as you're braking, go down into second, hit the first apex, kind of drift out wide, and let the car, let the grip come to you, and then rotate the car, and then you'll be able to accelerate out of the corner. Davin, do you have a different approach to this turn?
So to me, Surtees is the hardest corner on the course because
It's
to
so
me,
difficult.
I treat it actually as a single late apex corner. So I know you double it. I treat it as a single, and the reason for me is because that first apex for me is kind of a natural adjustment as I'm trying to get to the second one. So to not give myself too much to do, I focus on trying to get the car rotated as late into the corner as possible, and then apexing as late as I can on the backside of the corner. It's easier for my brain, right? The double apexes and me don't normally get along because I am either early on the first one or then late on the second one. So whenever there is a double apex corner, I try to aim for the second one because that's the one where I'm going to need to get on the power, right?
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I would say. So a negative of my approach is that you will be going too slowly into the corner and you might hit the inside curve, and the ST does not like this inside curve. Okay. I would say a con or negative of Davin's approach is that you can very easily go too deep into the corner.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
I was gonna say that. Yep.
Yeah. So you guys have to decide for yourselves what you're more comfortable with. I like aiming for an apex because I kind of know, okay, my line is going to be set up and I'm not going to go deep into this corner.
Yeah.
Whereas that late apex, you might, or the only one single apex, you might honestly be able to take this turn a little bit faster, which is why Davin was the leader, the fastest guy on track not too long ago. But I feel like I can't be consistent if I do that. So it's just kind of up to you.
One other thing too, so we were talking about this earlier before the session started about setup and comfort and setup, right? I can single apex this corner when I have a setup I'm comfortable with. Something where the front isn't super bitey, something I can use the steering wheel to make work. So I can make these little quick steering adjustments and stuff to scrub off speed as I'm like, oh crap, I've gotten too fast, right? As you're getting comfortable, I would adopt Marcus's approach, honestly. It's the safest, it's the easiest to be accurate, it's the easiest to adjust mid-corner, and you're not in that middle no man's land where, right where the Indy circuit starts, where the road's going to the right over there, where you can find yourself backwards or sideways, right? It's tough. Once you get into Surtees, you have to commit. And if the car gets sideways or gets loose, it's blind, right? Like, if you're sitting where you are right now, you don't know what's on the other side of that corner. So it's difficult sometimes if a car has spun or if someone has fallen off the track. You have no idea what's going to be there till you be there. So, one of the other reasons why I pick a late approach personally is because I'm almost like peeking around the corner, right? I take a wider line so I can kind of visually look ahead and be like, am I gonna die? No? Oh, okay, all right, I'm going to go, right? But because I've committed to that entry speed, I have to keep going. I can't just be like, well, I'm going to bail out of that, right? So.
Exactly. And you know, just mentioning camber again, you guys can see this is an off camber turn, so the road goes in the opposite direction or leans in the opposite direction to the turn. So that means you have to be super careful. So that's why it's so easy to go deep into this corner, is because once you get out there, the camber doesn't help you. So you're kind of like stuck trying to fight against, you know, the incline on the track also, and the car doesn't want to grip up. So that's another reason why I'll tend to try and stick it a little bit narrower through this corner.
This corner is notorious in the wet too.
Marcus?
Exactly what Marcus described.
Yeah.
On that, when you're driving out on wide here, a couple of sessions ago, you talked about fluttering the throttle.
Yeah.
To gain back in. Would this be a good spot for you to use that technique, or?
Yeah, you can use that. You can use that. So if the front isn't biting in, so I will do that. If going through the first apex, I feel like I don't know, you know, if I can start accelerating yet. I'll kind of test it out. So you kind of learn how to drive on the throttle and on the brake a little bit as you get more experience, right? Because you're kind of feeling for grip, and you'll see that real race drivers will do that. This kind of the same tendency is to kind of feel, is there grip, okay, there's grip, and then go. So yeah, absolutely.
One other thing, since we're here, and I'm kind of just peeking over your shoulder, is it's talking a little bit about brake bias. You know, because this track undulates a lot, and because it kind of cambers in a lot of different directions, at least me personally, I run more of a forward brake bias here than I would at, let's say, a flatter track, like let's say Barcelona or somewhere like that, because the track is working against me, and so I need to have a little bit more assurances up front that I'm not going to lock a tire trying to make the car do whatever it's doing as we're going across this little crazy nomadic landscape, right? So I might run something like a 57 or a 58 brake bias initially, just to make sure that I've got front brakes. And then as I get more comfortable and more bold, I will back that out. Or like a track like Barcelona, I might run 54 or 53. Because the track's flatter, it's not, you know, it's still got its cambers, sure, but it's definitely a newer track with a newer surface and all these other things. And so it's helping me have grip, and so it's not as uncomfortable. So some folks, like if you try to late apex like I would on a 53 brake bias, the brake balance of the car is more rearward, and so the car would be more likely to spin. And so I'm thinking about that as we're talking about how to approach a corner like Surtees. You know, be mindful of your car's setup on some of those adjustments you can make on the fly to help you. Because otherwise, you know, some people will run the fixed same brake bias every track they go to, and then they wonder why the car works on some tracks and doesn't work at others. So it's a different track, different environment.
Yeah, so I guess while we're talking about that, we can address 2 points really quickly. So, if on corner entry under braking, you spin, then change the brake bias, move it forward, and see if that helps. If on corner exit you spin, when you get on the throttle, increase the traction control and see if that helps. Those are 2 non-setup really related things that can make a huge difference on a track, okay? And then as you get more comfortable, maybe you can back off the TC and see, okay, did I just have bad kind of, you know, foot control on the throttle there, or does the traction control legitimately help me? It's a tool, okay? Leaning on traction control is not a bad thing. You will see aliens do laps with literally a GT3 car on full traction control, full dry, perfect track conditions, and then you'll see somebody else do it on TC1 or something, and both of those people are fast. It just kind of depends on your driving style, what you like. Use the tools at your disposal, okay? But those are 2 very quick and dirty things that you can just look at, depending on what's happening on corner entry and corner exit, that you can very quickly adjust and see if you can help yourself. Okay, so for this turn, you can still kind of see the curb here. The inside curb here is very dangerous. It's a big curb, okay? The ST does not like this. Some of the front engine cars are just fine, but the ST does not, okay? So I've already done my first apex. I'm kind of coming out wide and waiting for the car to start biting. I'm in second gear again, okay? So both the previous kink and this turn, second gear turns. As I can see, that orange marker over there is when I know I should probably be able to be on the throttle. So I don't know if you guys, the Assetto Corsa Competizione signs are dead front of my car, and then to the left there's a little orange marker. When I can see that, I know I could probably be on the throttle and I'll be okay. I still have to feel out what's happening with the car, right? Because you can't just slam on the throttle and be like, well, I hit my marker. But generally speaking, I'll know I should have enough traction at this point to be able to get out of this corner. Again, the car will kind of understeer out wide. You can use all the track, including that curb over there. And then just full on down the straight. Again, make the track as short as you can, right? Kind of just cut across the kink to over here, and then you're already set up for your next corner entry, nice and early. So coming up here, some good markers to pay attention to, okay, is the change in track color, which is pretty neat, because that is pretty much where you will brake in the rain, okay, is at that line on the track where the track changes color. The other good brake markers are the orange boards on either side at the ends of the barriers, okay, those are both very good, and then the distant ones as well. So in the dry, I don't really have a good definitive one. I brake in between the two orange boards on the left hand side is where I brake going into here, okay, and I go down into fourth. You can go down into third if you want to, but you're going to be high on the rev range if you're maintaining the speed that you should be carrying into this corner. So I'm in fourth, and then I tend to get on the throttle earlier because I'm in fourth, because it's kind of low revs at that point, so the car doesn't have much torque. It's not going to send me into a spin or do something crazy. And then by the time you exit the corner, you're nice and high in fourth gear, okay? So brake into the corner, kind of aim for about mid-track as you're braking, and then just kind of coast around the turn until you feel like it's biting. The car is really biting nicely, and you should be able to get on the throttle about here somewhere, okay? Again, it's going to carry you out wide. You can use this curve, but be careful. This is a notorious point where people will spin, okay? They will get a tire or two off into the sand or the grass over here, and while they're on the power, and they'll spin. So just be mindful of that. Just be mindful of that with this corner exit, okay? Coming up here to the next kink, you see the diagonal one just in front of us. There's a marshal post as well, and then there's two orange boards. So one closer to us than the diagonal whiteboard stripe, and one slightly further, okay? Those are all good reference points that I like. You're going to be out nice and wide, and I will usually brake kind of right as the orange board disappears behind the pillar in the corner of my cockpit, okay? As soon as that happens, I'll brake, just scrub off a little bit of speed, go down into third gear. You can do it in second, but it's going to be, again, right at the top, so you're going to have to change gears right away, and it's going to be very easy to spin, okay? So I would advocate third. Always with the ST, it's almost better to be in a higher numbered gear, so third instead of second, for example, just because of that tendency for the ST to not like gear changes. So you kind of have to think, okay, where am I going to be soon, and then go with that. On Brands Hatch, there are two places where you can really cut corners, okay? This is one of them. You can come across and use a lot of this curve. If you get too greedy, it'll let you know the car will bottom out, and a lot of times it'll throw the rear end sideways, okay? So there's a Goldilocks point where you can cut and not. If you're afraid of that, that's fine. You can just lightly touch this curb and you will set yourself up just fine, okay?
Ooh, Marcus, one thing.
Yeah.
Westfield is also another place where, as you start getting more comfortable with the car, you start to kind of break the rules of what we're talking about. Because, at least for me, when I approach a Westfield, I'll get the car rotated a little bit, and then straighten the car up, and then get on the brake before really turning in. Because it's a momentum section of the track, where you're carrying a lot of momentum through the whole... A lot of lap time is found through, basically, what we call turn 5, 6, 7, and 8. Right? Because it's a big flowing section where you have to ride the roller coaster all the way through and kind of use the brakes to just minimize the speed loss to get the car turned in without actually really ever stopping. So the more you can get comfortable with kind of rolling through corners through this section, you'll find time like crazy. And then adjust your brake points to be farther back because you're carrying so much more speed than you realize as you get more comfortable.
Yep. The other thing that helps, if you're noticing the car is not taking the curb so well, so like what we just went over, right? Is if you can set up your turn so that you can just very quickly straighten your steering as you cross that curb, odds are you'll be just fine. Okay, so if you're turning and trying to get on the power and you notice, oh man, the back is stepping out the whole time, do the same thing, except next time as you're going over the curb, just straighten your steering just for like a second, half a second, and then turn back into the corner again, and you'll be able to carry that momentum across there and get on the power. Okay.
Also, when you're following someone through here, you know,
Oof,
a lot of people fall
dangerous.
up here. A Oh my God, a lot of people fall off through here, and like it's because they normally drop a tire or they cut too much on the inside. It's mostly because they drop on the outside, but a lot of times you see people drop on the inside. So there's two kind of schools of thought. We were talking about this, I think, during the Barcelona debrief. When you're following a car, the closer you follow a car, the closer the more you trust the driver in front of you, that they won't make a mistake, that they won't fall off, and so you're matching and mimicking kind of what they're doing because your car can be in its safe space. If you don't know the driver that you're chasing, if you are chasing someone who is erratic, if there is something in front of you that you guys are going to come up against, like lap traffic or more traffic in front of you, it is always better to back off like a 1 count before entering the corner, so that you have a little bit of time to see what the car ahead of you is doing, so you can adjust.
Yep,
right?
Go
ahead.
And when Davin says back off, he just means basically let go of the throttle like a second before. And you'll see it'll generate a gap automatically, and then you just hit your normal braking point, and you should make it through there just fine, even if you're pretty close behind somebody.
Exactly. Right, especially through these momentum sections where there's not a lot of runoff, place to brake, like slow down properly, place to dump the car if there's a problem. You need to use your kind of momentum. Or dodge, yeah. Or use your momentum and judgment to figure things out. Because if I'm full send into this corner and there's a car in the middle of the road, especially if someone's not using the brakes to stop or any of the things we normally talk about in other clinics, you will hit them. Like, there's just not a way around it. And so you have to give yourself a little bit more room, so at least you can maybe come to a stop or decide really, really early on, I'm going to dump this car off, right? There are times like, well, I'll follow someone that there's just no way I'm going to make it around. Oh, apocalypse now, and there's just no way through. I decide real early, I'm gonna just park over in the sand, where it's fine.
Yep.
Right.
Brands Hatch is a great track to practice where you are looking on track, because if you are paying attention to like 2 meters in front of you, it's like forest for the trees kind of thing. You have to be looking way down the road, and this is a good place to be practicing that, because you'll run into AI or whatever you're practicing with all the time if you're not careful and paying attention to what's happening out front. So what Davin was talking about is where people typically drop it is over here. Okay, you carry too much speed into the corner when you follow somebody, or when you're trying to get away from somebody, and you'll go out too wide here, and if you put a tire on the grass, which is, you'll see there's kind of this cobblestoney stuff, that's safe, and then there's a little strip of grass, and then there's dust. If you hit that strip of grass or that dust, that sand, you're dead. It's game over, yeah. And probably the person behind you also, because you're going to turn sideways and they're going to 90-degree impale you.
So that gravel, that cobblestone that Marcus just pointed out is kind of what I use when I know I'm on the limit of the corner, because it's just enough that like I can't steer, I can't really do anything, but it kind of feels like you're 3 wheels on, right? It's because you kind of are 3 wheels on, but it's still paved. Right, in the wet, it's a disaster. If you're over here, it's a disaster. You just go straight onto those barriers because the grip is gone, and you just boom, right? But in the dry, you can use it. Also, you can use it in places where, like, if someone is caught up in here, as kind of like a really, really tiny, in case of emergency, break glass access road to just like straighten steering up and just roll down that section. Yep. Like, you're not trying to go fast anymore. You just need enough traction so you can move around. Right, that's a fine idea, but yeah, if you get over into the sand trap over there, rip.
Yep. So, interesting thing happens if you get into the sand trap. It kind of pulls you into the sand trap. If somebody gets onto the grass and they rotate the nose of the car towards the track side, they're going to come across the track. Okay, so if you are coming into here and somebody 2 cars or 1 car ahead of you, you see getting sideways, aim for this spot where I am right now, because they're going to go across the track, okay? And you'll just kind of be able to cruise by behind them, because that's the camber. Again, the camber effect, right? The car wants to go that way because that's the path of least resistance, okay? So yeah, so over here on corner exit, do the best that you can to make this road as short as possible, okay? If you're going really fast and you can't really turn more, you're going to end up somewhere over here, but you can get pretty close to this inside curve over here, okay? And then kind of ride it up here. I'll go out here to set myself up for the next turn, okay? And then turn in, because your braking for this next turn is weird. It's bizarre. It's like counter to normal braking thinking, okay? You can tell I'm not on the outside of the road, so I'm not going to go outside, inside, outside. I'm going to go inside, outside, inside, outside. Okay, I don't know if that made sense, but there's the diagonal 2 board over here, then there's that orange board, and then there's the 1. as I'm approaching that orange board where the road straightens, that's my brake marker. Okay, so I'll brake pointing the car away from the corner, which is weird to think about, but this is the best way through here. And as soon as you get in a rhythm, you'll see it kind of makes sense. Okay, so
wait, one thing to that too, just because we're right here. Remember we talked about earlier about how the track changes camber and deformation, right? People get caught out here a lot. It's because they don't think about the crest of this hill, right? You're going uphill, you're going over a crest, and the track changes direction as you go over that crest. So as you carry speed, if you, let's say, tried to brake at the 1, right, because that's what people think they should do for reasons I still don't understand, but they try to brake at the 1, you're going to be carrying too much speed because you don't have enough room to slow down. The car is still going to go over the crest anyway, and you're still going to have to try to turn. So you know how a lot of people get that weird tank slapper moment when they go into the wall that's on the inside of this corner right here? It is 99% of the time because they've braked too late. And they're just carrying too much speed up into the hill, and they weren't really thinking about what happens when the track turns because they haven't gotten that far ahead yet. And so there's not enough room to bleed off that excess speed that you've just given it to the corner, and there's nowhere to go except for either straight into the gravel or into the inside wall as the car is trying to do what you asked it to. So if you brake a little earlier here, you will save yourself so much pain. We jokingly called this area the Amelia Zone the last time we had a clinic here, because when Amelia and a few other people were braking down here, it looked cool for about 2 seconds, and then they were dead on the other side. So I always mention that here because this hill, you know, you're going uphill. Gravity's helping you slow down because you're going up a hill. Right. So use that and get your braking down early, and then let the gravity do the rest, and then just go around it.
Yeah, Brands Hatch is kind of an interesting track. To be fast at Brands Hatch, you have to brake earlier than you think. Most people will come here, I don't know why, and I was the same, honestly, when I first drove Brands Hatch, and think you can brake later than you can, because that's kind of how you do it at other tracks. But because of the camber and all this other weird stuff that happens at this track, if you brake earlier, you get such a better exit on the corner that you're way faster, and people behind won't be able to catch you because they'll kind of concertina, and then you'll be pulling out of the corner way faster than they can because they've messed up their line. So yeah, Brands Hatch, always err on the side of braking earlier, I would say, than you think you need to, and then you'll be safe. Especially also because the corners are blind, right? I don't know where this turn is right now. I have no clue. You still can't see the turn, right? So you're braking up here until you get to the outside of the track, and then you just kind of turn in, and all of a sudden you'll see it's visible now. I should already be turning by the time that the corner becomes visible, which is weird to think about, okay? But this is one of the most fascinating corners, I think, in ACC, just because it's totally blind and you're turning before you can see it at all. And this is the second place on this track where you can cut the corner pretty aggressively, okay? But again, there's a Goldilocks, so I would say don't go more than like 2/3 of your car over this curb, because as soon as you're a little bit more, the car is going to bottom out and you're going to spin, even if you come in slowly. Okay, so if you have that curb kind of in the middle of your car, you've taken a great line. This turn I tend to take in third, okay, because it's kind of uphill, but because it drops away again, third will kind of pick up, and you'll be in the right ratio. Otherwise, I'll have to change into third while I'm still turning, because you're going to have understeer because of the camber of this road over the crest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know, Davin, do you do the same thing? Or
I do actually. So I do it in third because I want to drive the car like a single speed go-kart, right? I don't want to shift up, so second is way too slow, and fourth is too high because the car you'll hear it just ball.
Exactly.
Right.
Bump down.
The other big thing that I'm a big proponent of is front slip angles, like the steering of your front tires. You probably heard this, so I'm going to keep it short, but you know, a tire can only do 100% of what it can do, either accelerate, brake, or turn. That's why we call it technically I should say accelerate, brake, or corner, and that's why we call it the ABCs, right? And so what I'm always trying to do is to steer as little as possible so I can use my tires more for acceleration and braking and less for cornering, right? ABC. So when I get up the hill here, if you don't cut the curb a little bit, I have to steer a lot to make the corner. Now, inversely, if you cut the curb too much, you have to steer a lot to not fall off the road. Right? And so that's why it's kind of a Goldilocks moment, because it's either too hot or too cold and you're screwed. And if it's just right, you just You know, I end up light on the throttle here all the way through the exit of the corner. It's almost like a maintenance throttle to balance the car all the way to the exit before I get back over to Stirlings. Because if you get on the power too early, you fall into the grass, right? And then you're dead because you've just fallen off the track. And if you get on the power too late, then you're not accelerating at all, and somebody will just shove up right behind you. So holding whatever speed that I carried in the corner and just riding it through till I get to the next part of the corner is always beneficial. Because, you know, it's not that long, you know, you can see the guy down there waving. It's not super far, right? I just need to be able to hold my, whatever, 90 miles an hour or whatever it is, right? Until I get to a point where I can really utilize it.
Yep. The other thing, again, camber, right? Look, the road falls away from you here. So when you get on the power coming out of that corner, you're going to understeer out. So you have to kind of balance that with staying on the track. Okay, so you want to carry speed that keeps you on the track. You can run a little bit wide here, but I would honestly advocate just staying on the track here to stay safe.
And it's bumpy.
It's bumpy, exactly. And in the rain, you definitely don't want to get off the track. So just practice this line, and you'll be safe no matter what, and you'll still be able to go fast.
Sheene and Westfield, the corner right before it, those are two corners where following a car close is very risky. Because if the car in front of it falls, it has nowhere to go, and neither do you. So, you know, even if I'm chasing someone I trust, like if Marcus and I are racing down here, or John and I are racing down here, I trust Marcus. I can lean on him pretty hard, right? But even then, I'll still give him a little bit of room because he might just drop a tire absent-mindedly, like not intentionally, just 6 inches where the tire falls and throws a little dirt up, and it's enough of a change in speed where he's going 82 miles an hour now and I'm going 85 for a split second, and I'll hit him. There's just nothing. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't get on the brakes because I don't have enough time. I can't steer because I don't have enough time. He didn't do anything wrong. It just happens. And so you have to give yourself a little bit of safety margin when you're chasing cars through this area, because I've seen a lot of rookie races where people won't do that, and then they'll bump the guy in front of them or get bumped, and they'll be like, "Oh man, the guy turned into me or he rammed me." I mean, yes, he did, but he did it because he didn't have enough time to realize he was gonna. Right? So it's sometimes helpful, even when you're working that whole rhythm section, to realize, oh, I'm going to catch this car. I'm not in a place yet where I can really accelerate. I might want to just roll out of the throttle just a little bit and give the car in front of me like a 1 count of space until I can really get on the power again.
Exactly. Yep, and I would say the same. So Brands Hatch has a couple of good passing places where people, if they don't get a good drive off the corner, you'll kind of shoot by them. Okay, one is that long straight that goes downhill after the very difficult corner. If the person ahead of you messes up that corner and you get a good exit, you're going to pass them on that straight before you even get to that kind of uphill turn. Okay, this is not a passing place.
No.
This is the opposite of that. So honestly, if you're behind somebody, I would advocate just do what you need to stay behind them. Be patient. Your chance will come. Okay, set yourself up for a good place. All right, you're going to come all the way across the track here, and I use the diagonal one whiteboard and the orange thing on the fence here. Those are my two markers. I brake before them because then I feel like I can really slingshot through this corner, because here the camber is in your favor. Okay, so second or third, you can decide. Because the camber is in your favor, the odds that the car is going to kick you into a spin is a little bit less. But if you're carrying the right amount of speed, I would probably do it in third, honestly. But second also works. Okay, so you're going to brake. This is more like a traditional corner where you can brake down here, and then you want to take advantage of the camber. Okay, so you want to get to the inside here, and you can ride this inside curve. This is one of the few curves on the inside of a sharper corner that you can ride. And you'll be able to get on the throttle earlier than you think also, especially if you're in third, right? Because it's not third's power zone, so it's not going to push the car way out wide just yet because it's not kicking in. And then you can kind of ride this. This is a nice wide curve here. By the time this curve comes down, you need to be back on track because it's very easy to drop a tire, and this is another easy spin zone. Okay.
Yep.
One thing I will say about that turn we just went through is if you start out just too wide, it is so easy to drop a tire to the right-hand side under braking. It's very, very easy. So make sure that you are inside the limits of the track there when you start braking. I know that sounds like stupid, why am I saying that? But you'll see each of you is going to drop a tire at some point during practice or in the race. You'll be like, oh, he told me I was going to go straight in that corner.
Yep.
Okay, because then braking is going to do nothing. You're just going to go straight into the barrier behind us. No turn-in will happen. Okay.
Well,
so
and let's talk about why that is real quick, because
Sure.
I think it's important for people to realize why. The pedals and the steering wheel in your car are more about weight management than they are about accelerating and decelerating. So like, when you're in your road car and you get in your brakes and you lean forward, and you get on the gas and you lean back, and you turn the steering wheel and you turn the opposite direction, that's weight shifting, right? That's weight management. And so what you're doing really at the limit of the car is you're managing the weight over these four corners, which we call tires, to get the car to do what you want, right? There's a saying I tell a lot of folks that I coach in real life where I say brake to go straight. Because if you get on the brakes hard, the only thing that really happens is that it loads up to the front of the car and overwhelms the front tires and pushes the car in the direction that it was pointing. And so when you lose traction, let's say when you drop a tire, your 100% of available potential grip maybe has turned to 10%. And so when you are on the brakes, you immediately overwhelm that 10% and will go straight. The physics just won't let you do anything else. And so, a lot of times, like if you fall off the track, you kind of have to unwind the wheel and take a wide arc and slow the car down and do a bunch of funky stuff to just make sure you don't hit anything, because you don't have as much grip as you did when you were on a paved surface where hot rubber was touching hot tarmac.
Yep, different friction coefficients.
Yep. So it's important to know that, because, at some point in your driving career, you need to have files in your folder to what happens to either A, when I make a mistake, or get pushed off, right? And that'll save your race. Like, there have been races where I've been pushing my butt off, and I make a mistake because I forgot to brake early enough or whatever, and I fall into the dirt. And, if I know how to correct it, I'll fall off and fall right back on and barely lose any time. And people will be like, oh, you were driving in the grass, how crazy. I'm like, dude, I was praying most of the time. But at least I have a bit of tools to use to minimize my pain. A lot of folks, I hear it on the comms all the time. They fall off, then they go, damn it. And they're not really paying attention to what the car is doing in the grass or doing in that situation. And then they get back on the track because that's all they want to do. But they've skipped the, what do I need to be doing while I'm in the grass portion.
Exactly.
So.
And just while we're talking about track re-entry, always re-enter shallow angle. Don't enter at a 90-degree angle.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing I totally forgot. Stirlings is a great place to pass people because of everything that Marcus just said, by a theme that's on this track, which is backing up a tick, right?
Yep.
The important corners are the corners where you're about to exit an acceleration zone where you're on the power for the longest time, right? Here's a good example of a section where you're going to be on a power for a significant amount of time. So if you're carrying 1 or 2 miles an hour more into the corner than the guy in front of you, then you're going to carry that speed all the way down to the end of the next straight. Right?
Remember, it's about exit, right? So even if you slow down more before the corner, so like we said, letting go of the throttle and then hitting your normal braking point, if you get a good exit run, so if you get on the power when you're supposed to, or maybe even a little earlier than normal because you've gone a little bit more slowly through that corner now, you will be faster exiting than the guy in front of you, especially if you were pressuring him and he braked maybe a little bit late. Then he's going to have a horrible exit, the exact opposite. So he's going to get on the power later. So you'll just kind of blow by that guy. So always think about corner exits. It's not about beating somebody under braking.
Right. Well, and the thing is that the earlier you can get a pass done in a corner or down a straightaway, the easier it is. And, we have this, like, I don't know whether we get it from watching Formula One or reading too many books or watching too much about Senna or whatever, where we get this preconception that, like, the only way to pass someone is on the brakes at the end of the corner. But that's actually just the hardest time, if you think about it, right? We're at the highest possible speed before I do anything, so there's less of a chance for error. I have the least amount of physical road in front of me because the road is turning, and the guy probably knows that I'm there, so I have the least amount of time to surprise him or show my nose or anything else like that, right? Exit acceleration cornering, like passing someone down here, is the easiest thing in the world to do because we're just accelerating.
There's
nothing they can do. Yeah, exactly. Nothing they can do. They lost the corner behind you, and you're just rolling up the straightaway. And, the only way they're going to stop you is by blocking you. And 1, illegal. 2, you can see it coming, right? And so it's easier to avoid and do things with. Like, I would say that I'm a pretty intermediate driver, and I rarely attack somebody under the brakes. Like, I'll beat you under the brakes if I just have a huge old run, or we just need to get this done, right? But it's like the last tool I want to pull, instead of maybe getting you under acceleration or waiting for you to make a mistake and fall off the road, where I can do less work. I'm actually trying to win the race doing as little work as possible, right? Where a lot of new folks literally pick the hardest options right?
Right,
And then
right.
work their way backwards because they think that's like what bravery is. And I'm like, well, you're just making it harder for yourself. Like, be easy, be lazy, right?
Exactly.
Those are perfect opportunities to be lazy. Right?
Yep, exactly. Other thing to think about, as this is a good passing opportunity, is if you look ahead of us, the next corner, the camber, again, is not in the person on the outside's favor. Okay, so if you can get on the inside down into this next corner, and you're remotely close to having your nose on the inside of the car, you've won the corner already, because the guy on the outside has to slow down way more because of the camber. They're going to have to get thrown out off the track if they're not careful. Okay, and the same thing goes down into turn 1. So something to be mindful of if you're the driver on the outside is you're going to have to go way slower. You can't hit your normal braking point and try and still make the corner, because the camber gets worse the closer you get to the edge of the road. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You have to brake earlier if you're going to take the way outside line so that you can get back on the power and even remotely get close to contesting. Down this straight is another dicey thing or area where you have to be aware, right? Because I just crossed over the road. So again, you have to make sure there's nobody around you or next to you or something like that, otherwise you're just going to wipe each other out. You'll see that a lot, honestly, as people trying to come across the road and they'll just brush the person ahead's tail with their nose, and then they'll both crash. So down into here, you want to be nice and wide. I like 2 markers here. Well, 3. So the diagonal white board with the 1 on it is 1. The other one is this little runoff road off to the left, and the other one is, I can't tell if that's wood or what material that is just over here, but there's an orange thing on the barrier and then some other kind of stuff that's not a tire wall that's in front of the tire wall. So those those 3 things are really good markers. If you're on the inside and you can't see any of those because there's a car, you have the short track that joins the track right over there close to the apex of the corner. That's another marker. Okay, so I will usually brake before, so as soon as my post crosses in front of whatever this weird stuff is in front of the tire barrier. Okay, the latest you kind of want to brake with the ST is probably that diagonal 1 whiteboard, but again, that's probably going to get obliterated, so you don't want to use that as your go-to marker. Okay, here you have to be careful because of the camber of the road. Sorry, Devin, did you want to say something?
Oh, I just had just one small thing. Easy thing for me is that if I hit those red and white barriers, if I haven't started braking there, it's too late. I jokingly tell people if I've gotten to the circus tent, I've gone too far. Yeah, because the ST just doesn't have like massive amounts of GC3 downforce. You're still moving relatively quick because you're in a car with 600 horsepower. Like, you're moving, right? And so you need to give your car enough time. Also, like, rear engine or mid engine, but the engine's kind of rear biased and like blah 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 blah, right? So the ST does best if you give it a helping hand. And so if you brake a little earlier than you think you need to, you don't beat the crap out of it on turn-in, you don't jump on the throttle, you don't shift up in the middle of the corner, you don't make it work too hard, it can be a very amiable car.
Yeah,
but a lot of people,
it just kind of comes to you.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of people, what they do is they treat it like it's got more downforce than it does. They treat it like it's got, I guess, more gear than it has. And they treat it like the traction control is more sophisticated than it is. And it's got none of those things. So, you get down here and you jump on the brakes really hard and try to turn and you jump on the throttle, and then you get that death wobble as it's trying to electronically figure itself out and turn and stop. And then people are like, the ST can't turn. The ST can turn. You just need to know how to make it turn.
Yep. It turns really well, actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So here is another, because it's an off-camber corner, you want to be closer to the apex earlier, if that makes sense. So you don't want to be braking like in a straight line down here, way out wide. You kind of want to be braking diagonally, okay? So that when you reach the apex, which is probably these 3 little things that are standing up in front of us, that you can be way on the inside. Okay, you should almost be wiping these things out with the inside of your car.
Somebody will. Those won't be there.
Will. Exactly. They won't be there.
I'll do it.
But yeah, and then through this corner, honestly, it's a third gear corner for me. You want to be careful again about not getting on the power early, okay? Because look at the road again; it goes into a dip now and is off camber, so you're just going to get pushed out wide. This is ultimate. Somebody's going to go off wide into the gravel over there at some point in the race, or qualifying, or practice. So you kind of want to, honestly, I stay totally off the throttle. I just kind of coast through here until I start hitting this dip, because then the car will start gripping up, and then I'll get back on the power in third. And you'll see it's going to kind of push you out wide, like here somewhere, which is fine. You just want to be careful that you don't get wider than this. This is another corner, Jeremy, to your point earlier, where you can kind of ride the throttle. If you notice, oh crap, it's pushing me out wide, you can come off and back on and get the car to rotate. The ST is interesting because you can rotate it under throttle. So if you come off and back on the throttle, you'll notice that the car, because of the grip that you've given the front tires for like half a second, and then all of a sudden the torque that's going through the rear tires, both of those actions rotate the car. Okay, so you're going to be out nice and wide, and then you're going to want to be aiming again to shorten the track here. Okay, so kind of coming back across the road. So you have to be careful, because this is another place where people will come together if they're not paying attention. If
or
they
pit a last minute because we're not paying attention.
Exactly.
Had that happen.
Exactly. So just be mindful through this section again, if there's somebody next to you, that you don't pinch each other. And then...
one other thing. Sorry, man. The other thing I was thinking of too is when you're with multiple cars, it's kind of the same problem, right? You have to imagine where your car will be in the future, not where it is in the present.
Yeah.
And so I see a lot of people here because there's multiple lines you can take on the entries. Like some people would like to be really narrow. Some people are mid-track. Like I typically am mid-track because of the way I drive. Like I have to unwind the wheel in the middle around here and carry that speed in the next corner. So I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. So sometimes somebody will slip up the inside of me. It just kind of happens, and I'm kind of used to it, so I don't get worried about it so much. But when you're first starting, you aren't as you take $10 to drive the car, right? So right now it might take $9 to really just keep the car underneath you when you're starting. So when someone's around you, whether inside or outside, you don't exactly know where you're lined up, and crew chief sometimes isn't the most helpful thing in the world. And so people will bump into each other here. Like I see a lot of start line crashes because of it, right? Because people aren't aware of the cars around them, the closing speeds are a little bit different, yada, 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 yada. Or like I'm closing on a slower car, and then that car moves over to adjust for its line because it doesn't see me coming. Exactly. And so it's good. Oh god, it's horrible. So it's good to give yourself an extra 2 count and look as far ahead as possible to say, okay, where is my car going to be in 5 seconds time, right? And then adjust for where it needs to be so I don't become 2 Lamborghinis.
Right, because the other thing to think of is if you come through the last turn well and somebody ahead of you went wide, they're going to be rejoining the track so slowly. And they won't have time to recognize that you're there because you're going to be coming out of that corner at 100 whatever miles an hour.
Yeah.
So that person will want to get back on line, and you'll be taking your normal line. And I've seen so many people collide in that situation that it's not even funny because neither one anticipates what the other one's going to do.
Right.
So just be mindful. Yeah.
One last thing, and I know we're talking a lot, but I think it's important. One thing that I see a lot of rookies do is they shift the ego to themselves rather than the drivers around them. And so they're like, I'm faster, that guy should get out of my way. Right. And that's what causes the most crashes, because you assume that I don't need to do anything and everyone needs to do something for me. You are only in control of your own car. So you can't do anything about any of the other cars around you and what they are going to do. They can only do something for themselves. No more, no less. And so when you're driving, I always recommend that you need to put the ego into the other drivers and say, that guy will turn in on me. That guy will not see me. That guy will not brake for me. I need to put my car into a safe space so that I can get around him without him having to change any of his behaviors.
Yep, defensive driving, right?
Right, it's defensive driving 101. And that way, you will dominate people that way because they're doing what they are normally doing and you're just in some ghost area that they can't touch you and you just slip right by. Right? I'm not trying to force them. Like the low percentage moves, the moves that are 10% or less, are the ones where like, Marcus and I are going full speed towards turn 1 and I'm going to outbrake him and I'm going to hold him out and I'm going to make it sit there. I'm gambling now, right? I'm on the roulette wheel at the casino and I'm putting all my money on black that he won't turn in, that he breaks at the right place, that he's patient and that he knows he's lost when we get here, because if he doesn't do those things, I am at his mercy, right? He can still turn it on me and wreck my race anyway. So I save those moves for like, the Super Saiyan 1 last minute sort of thing rather than, the first thing I go to. So. Exactly. And if you've ever seen some of those crazy passing, shows that people will do, kind of on accident in a race, it's really because they're very good at defensive driving. They can anticipate what the people are going to do, and that's why they can weave their way through traffic like that.
So yeah, so it's that is a huge component of racecraft is being able to anticipate and kind of look ahead. So yeah, so Davin, we are back at T1 for you to walk us through your approach to T1.
Oh, I love turn 1. So it's a roller coaster, right? And it dips, and it does a bunch of fun stuff, and everybody hates it, and it's because no one really pays it any attention. There are a couple markers that I use for braking going into this corner.
There's a nice one that says brake over there.
There's another one that's a building. And so I use the building and the orange marker before, because those things will never ever move. When the building gets to my A pillar, brake, right? Like, it just never is going to move. It's just never going to happen. So it's a permanent thing that I can always use. Some people line up the crane at the end. Some people use that orange marker that's down there. The tricky part about going through Paddock, though, is because it's kind of undulating. The grip level of the track will change whether we're on green, fast, or optimal. Braking here earlier is always a little better, right?
Yes,
because if I brake a
100%.
little earlier, I'll have a little more margin for a lockup, or for less grip than I think, or just I didn't brake as hard on initial application as I thought I should have. Or my favorite, I brake too hard, where I just go in and bam, go straight to the ABS, and it's just right, and it won't turn. So I need to give the car a helping hand and give it a little bit of time to be like, Devin, you've made a mistake, right? Because I still need to get the car down to where that man is turning the flag. It's still an apex I have to get to, right? Barring that no one's coming out of the pits and all these other genius things, right? But I still need to get the car turned down there. So I need enough time to be able to stay on the brakes. And honestly, for this corner, I personally trail brake a little through this corner, just a little, right? I need to keep the nose. We talked about weight shifting a couple corners back, right? I need to keep enough weight on the front of the car so that I can use the front tires to get the car into the apex, right? I'm not trying to shove it in there. I'm just trying to get it to steer, right? And enough weight that I can manage the car on the brakes a little bit so that if I need to bleed off a little speed or just make a minor adjustment to stop from falling off into the sand, I can. But there are a plethora of reference points here. And normally what happens is that, and this happens on every racetrack for everybody, no matter the skill level, when we start going faster, just moving more quickly, we actually are moving more quickly than the brain can compute. So what it does is it fills in the gaps with memory and things that it's seen before. And so, one of the reasons why looking ahead is so useful is that it slows down the reaction time that your brain needs to pull in data, because it's looking at an object that's not moving for a longer period of time, and so it just knows that it's coming. Where when you're looking right in front of the nose of the car, your brain's going, and so eventually it goes, this is too much information. I'm just going to throw out crap. I just don't have time for all of this because I'm moving at 100 miles an hour. And so you don't notice that, like, the road is cambered and it's moving and it's whatever. Watch the next time you drive, the track kind of seems flat, right? You know the feeling, right? Where, like, now that we're doing the track walk, you're like, oh, I didn't know the track was downhill. I didn't know there was camber. I didn't know. That's a subconscious thing that your brain does by throwing out information because it just doesn't have enough time. So people miss a lot of key markers down here. And they also miss when they've made a mistake, like while the car is understeering or on the ABS because it's happening too quickly. So by braking at a little bit before the building or a little bit before that marker, try the next time you enter the paddock just getting on the brakes and paying attention to the behavior of the brakes. Don't try to make the corner just yet. Just listen to the tires, listen to the brakes, listen to the ABS, and those three things will tell you so much if you're going to make that corner. Because if you hear, that is the car telling you, hey, Davin, I'm at the limit of everything you've given me. Please hold.
Exactly.
Right?
And seeing as we've slowed this down way more, I guess, than I was expecting, which is fantastic. I'm honestly glad that we did. If you look at the camber of the road ahead, okay, there's a little dip and then there's a crest again. Mm-hmm. So the car's going to go weightless over that crest. So what does that mean? That means you need your nose pointed in the right direction before you go over that crest. Okay, because the car's going to lose grip, which means you're just going to get pushed way out wide. Okay, yep. So that's why I was saying on our first go round, which we won't do a whole second lap just for this corner, right? What I was saying on the first go around is brake towards the apex of the corner, and that's because of this weird little hill that's in the middle of the corner as you're kind of at the point where it's important that the car bites.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You have this little weightless moment, which is very bizarre.
That's
So-
also why maintenance throttle is so helpful. I'm sorry, jump in there, because
Yeah, no, totally.
the track moves. It goes up and down, and so the reason why I can't keep harping on this is that like folks don't think about what the car is doing where it's at. And so, if we were sitting here in the corner and we're talking about it and everyone's, looking at it, and you probably just think I'm being stupid at this time because you're like, Davin, obviously, it's a hill and it's turned and it's not straight. Like, how am I going to use 600 horsepower going that way? Of course I need to use maintenance throttle. But I swear to you, the next time you enter this corner at full speed, you will not think about any of these things.
Yep.
And so you'll try to get back on the power full speed like it's going straight, and the car will, in the second that it goes through the entire sequence, will say, you weren't paying attention to me, and spit you off into the gravel. Right,
Yep.
so you have to look ahead and be ahead of it to be like, okay, in 5 seconds when we're getting ahead to this corner, I know I'm going to just get it in, get it down, wait in the throttle, and then accelerate out. We're not going to do a lot. It's going to be fine.
Yep.
Right. So yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway.
So just to round it out, I like the safety car board next to the dude on the left-hand side waving his flag. That's a good brake marker for me. And I like aiming towards the little tent over there as I'm braking, okay? Because that way you're kind of over here and then you're turning as you're going over this crest. So that weightless moment, you're as close to the inside of this turn as possible, which means you have the maximum amount of understeer that will be necessary to push you out, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's like the safest bet is to be, again, these things that people are going to take out is to be right here, because you're going to understeer out wide. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Also too, it gives you some runoff road, right? Like if you look down at the exit down there, it's a little bit paved, so you have a little bit of a catch, right? But it's not a lot. There's sand down there, yeah. Right? And I know we've all followed someone through here where they've dropped it right there, and then all of a sudden they either jump back on the road real quick, or you close up on them real fast, right? It's a good time to really think about where my escape roads need to be, or how much space do I need the car in front of them to finish doing whatever they want to do. Because I've had it in races where I back up a little bit, the car falls off in front of me, and then shoots across the track and ends up in the grass, and before I even get there. And you literally just drive right by while it's all happening.
So something I'm going to advocate for everybody is if this happens where you're in the gravel and you need to rejoin, don't rejoin at full throttle, okay? Because it's going to shoot you into a spin this way across the whole track. So while you cross the curb over here and the painted section, come off the throttle and just join nice and shallow. Give everybody behind a nice chance to see what you're doing, and then get back on the throttle once you're on the track. It'll save you a spin, I'm telling you. Alrighty, that's pretty much everything that I had to say. Did anybody have any questions or anything that they wanted to talk about?
They're all asleep.
I don't.
They're all bored and they hate it.
No, it was good. Thank you, Marcus. That was good.
I don't have anything to ask at the moment.
Fantastic. Alrighty, well, if nobody has any questions, then we can jump back into some practice.
And go drive some cars.
Heck yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was
Excellent.
awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.